Welcome to How to Cook That. I'm Ann Reardon and today we're making a baby shower cake with a big pregnant belly. And when you cut into the cake, it will reveal to your friends and family whether you're having a boy or a girl. What a beautiful, fun way to announce the gender of your baby. The first thing we need to do is make the cake, and for that you will need some flour, baking powder, sugar, eggs, oil, milk, margarine or butter, vanilla and some blue food colouring. Add the baking powder to the flour and whisk that together to aerate it, and then in your other bowl add in your sugar, milk, oil, eggs and vanilla. Whisk that on high speed, and I'll put all those recipe quantities on the howtocookthat.net website for you in grams and ounces and cups, and I'll link to that below. Once it's fluffy, then add in your blue or pink food colouring, depending if you're having a boy or a girl, and then spoon in the flour into the mixing bowl and mix it on low speed until it's just combined. Spread half of that mixture into a tray right the way out to the edges. And then for the other half, we want to use a round cake tin and a bowl that fits on top of that to give us the rounded belly shape. Line and grease both of those and then add in the cake batter and then bake those in the oven. To keep the candy in the middle from getting sticky from the cake and the frosting, we're going to make a chocolate container. So just spread some white chocolate onto the acetate there. I'm using a chocolate transfer sheet, but you can just use plain acetate if you don't have one of these. Lift it up to make the edges straight and then leave it until it's just starting to thicken up. You'll need to keep lifting it to check that because you want it to be flexible but not too runny. And then just put it inside a cookie cutter so that it makes it nice and round. And you can see here the acetate is overlapping, but I made the chocolate just a little bit shorter so that didn't overlap. And now you just want to close the gap using a little bit of extra chocolate. Once it's set, take the chocolate out of the ring and peel off the acetate. So now we have a nice round cylinder of chocolate to put our lollies in. Spread out some more chocolate, and once that's starting to set, we're just going to cut a circle out of that using the same cookie cutter for a lid. Once your cakes are cooled, you want to level them and trim off the edges. Now, because of the blue food colouring, what would look golden brown looks really dark brown, so we don't want any of that on the cake. Mix up a batch of buttercream and colour that to the same blue as your cake. And now we are ready with our tray cake, the rounded bowl and the round tin all trimmed. Take your cookie cutter and cut a hole right in the centre of the round cake. Add that cake on top of the tray one down one end and cut a hole right the way through to the cake board. Add some buttercream and then put that ring of cake into place. Then place the two circles that you've just cut out on the top there and trim the top of the cake off. Trim down and around, shaping the side of the cake, and repeat that on the other side. Out of the leftover piece, cut another circle and add that to the one that was cut out of the tray, because the one that was cut out of the round cake will have been thicker. Now cut two smaller circles and place them on top. Unstack all of that and add the buttercream underneath each one and layer the circles back on top. With this top one, I'm just going to trim it a little flatter on the belly side and push it down a bit, and then add the two smallest circles on top of that. Add in the chocolate circle into the center of the belly and then fill that up with blue candy or pink candy and add your chocolate circle on top like a lid. Cover that whole thing in buttercream and then put the bowl cake upside down on top for your round belly. Now, using a serrated knife, smooth off the sharp edges. You don't want to take a lot off here, just shave a tiny bit off just each corner. And also, I'm just going to shave a tiny bit off the top of the belly. At this stage of pregnancy, the baby tends to sit a bit lower, so the top of the belly is a little bit flatter and the bottom of it's a bit rounder. Not a lot, just a little bit. Cover the whole cake in your buttercream. And then I've shown you my secret for smoothing off a rounded cake before, but just to show you again, take some acetate and let it bend around the cake and run it up around the edges. And continue to do that, smoothing it until it's even without any lumps, except for that huge belly bump in the middle. We want to make the dress to come around the belly and then drape down. So I'm going to put some buttercream along the bottom edge so that there isn't a sharp drop off, so that it's smooth. Roll out some fondant for the skin, and then we want to make one edge really thin so that when we add it, we don't end up with a line across the tummy. Place the fondant over the top and lift and smooth the fondant down on the edges and just smooth it around, and you can see there on the belly it's so thin that it's not leaving us with a sharp line. Use a pizza cutter to take off the majority of the excess fondant, and then use a knife to trim it closer and then shave off a tiny bit more. Roll out some red fondant. Now you can make the dress any colour you like. Once you've rolled that out, just grab a pizza cutter and cut a strip, and we're going to place this across the top of the dress because I want to do layers like ruffles across the top there. Place the strip on an angle across and smooth it down and trim it at the belly and around the edge. Cut another strip and this time fold over just the top edge and push it down, smooth it down, and then place that overlapping the first strip. By folding that bit over, it just makes it sit up a bit like a ruffle. And do the same on the other side. Continue to add more strips until the boobs are completely covered. Roll a rectangle of red and cut the length to the length you want the dress to be. Add a silicone texture mat or a lace mould over the bottom end of the dress and press down firmly. And when you lift it off, you get a pattern left on the dress. Move it across and repeat it so it looks like a lace pattern going across the bottom edge. And if your pattern has a definite shape to it like mine, just use a knife to trim around it so that the edge matches the lace. Lay the fondant over the cake and then pinch up the bottom of the dress so it looks like ruffles in the fabric that are flowing down. Keep shifting that, just use your finger to lift it up to arrange those ruffles and keep going till you're happy with it, and then tuck under the sides of the dress where it's down the bottom. Smooth around the top edge using your little fingers and then trim off the excess fondant from the sides. At the top edge there, just use some scissors to cut off some of the excess, not all the way, just enough that we can see what we're doing, and it just makes it easier to do the next step. Now use a knife to trim it along, pulling the fondant up as you go so you can see if you're applying the right amount of pressure. You just want to cut through this top layer, not through the rest of the dress that you've already made. Then place a snake of fondant across the join and trim that at each end. Now in the center, you could do whatever you like. I'll show you a couple of options. One thing you can do is make a little bow. Just make a couple of loops out of fondant and then wrap one end around the middle there and then place that in the center of the dress. Or you could make a rose. I'm using the cheap little cutter that I got off eBay. I showed you this in the gadgets video the other week. But this time, instead of just cutting it and rolling it, I'm going to make it a little bit finer by flattening out the edges of the petals using a rounded tool. Fold that in half, take off the paper, and then just roll it up, pushing the petals outward as you go so that you end up with a pretty little rose. Make a little indent for where that's going to sit and add it into place in the middle of the dress. If only sewing real dresses was that easy. Subscribe to How to Cook That for more crazy sweet creations. Click here for the recipe, here for top 10 bands and artists' cake as voted by you, all put into the one cake, and here for another video of mine randomly selected for you by YouTube. Make it a great week, and I'll see you on Friday.